Happy Sunday, y'all. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everything is going your way. You can see a little bit of a difference back here behind me. Not a whole heck of a lot. I haven't really had much of a chance to get out here and do the work. Um, it's been kind of a crazy week. Inside baseball, behind the scenes, you probably don't care, but what the heck? I'm going to tell you anyway. Yes, I did get a haircut, regardless of how it looks. But anyway, um, I've made it no secret that I am going through a big thing with the dental issues. And back in either late November or early December, I had full extractions done, and I have immediate dentures in. And earlier, well, yeah, early this week, I went to go put in my lower partial plate, and it broke. So I was without teeth while that was getting fixed, so I can't do any voiceover work. I couldn't, we had to postpone our podcast. Me and my friend Eloy Escajedo do on Tuesday evenings. We finally got to it on Thursday, and it just threw everything way out because I couldn't speak. So it was a major pain. But I'm back on track now, and I'm finally able to get out here. And plus, we had a bunch of other things go on. Just you name it. So got back at it yesterday morning. This afternoon, I'm going to be getting back on doing the spoil board, mounting the table, and then get to constructing the spoil board. I've got, you can kind of see behind me, I have the table material sitting on top of the machine, and it's clamped down at the rear end. I got to do some more clamping up here in front. Then I'm going to trim that front edge um, right there with the CNC, and then go ahead and set my XY0 and drill the mounting holes for that, and finally get the table installed. Uh, I know somebody's going to ask, so let me show you here real quick. This is pulled forward slightly so that I can trim it and then drill the mounting holes without actually drilling down into the aluminum. So it's pulled forward some. This is going to be my vertical work holding surface right here, and it is recessed back 8 inches from the front of the machine. So I'll have space to mount things vertically. And then once this is drilled and mounted, this front edge will sit flush with the front of this here. And then I'll apply my spoil board to here and here. This just gives me a stable substrate to mount the MDF on. So uh, that is what's going on here right now. I've got the table mounting. It's all set. I've got the G code saved for it and everything. I just got to come bring it out here and get on it. So that's the name of that tune. That's where we sit right now. And that's also why I didn't have a video this week. So let's see here. We do have a couple of questions coming in now. A few things that I don't know anything about. Let's see here. Les Clements asked if anybody used a laser crosshair to set their starting point, meaning the XY. And I do not. I never have. So Michael Mazalik and Kurt Briegel and a few other people are answering those questions, and thank you for doing them. Thank you for doing that. Yes. Let's see. Let's go ahead and get into some of your questions here. Larry Stoss asks, which saves more time? Quarter-inch roughing pass with an eighth-inch cleanup pass, or just the quarter-inch roughing pass with less step over? And then I asked him for clarification, and he was saying in a pocket. If it's a standard pocket, um, basically that should be based on what the radius or what your tightest radius is going to be in that pocket. If you need a real tight radius, using a 1/8 inch, for example, bit just to do that final profile and clean out the corners, and then use a quarter-inch bit to hog out the main portion of that pocket, that's generally the way I do it. I'll use my smallest bit just for the profile, but then use the a larger bit to remove the majority of the material. The step over doesn't really enter into it. Um, and when I'm doing a clearance, like on a pocket, depending upon the project, the max I usually use is 40% of the diameter of the of my clearance bit. So if I'm using a quarter-inch end mill, my step over will be at the max 40% of that bit's diameter. Yeah, I sometimes do reduce the step over if I'm looking for a particularly nice bottom surface in that pocket. And I will also, let me switch over to Aspire here and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Let's get some, what am I doing here? Do that and then do that. And there we go. Okay, let's get some geometry out here. It doesn't have to be anything special. That's good enough. We'll switch over here and I'm going to pocket out this rectangle. Normally what I'll do is, for instance, if I need a real tight radius here, I'll use a 1/8 inch end mill, but my quarter-inch end mill is done for the clearance pass. Let me change my cut depth so I don't get an error here. And let's go for 0.125, let's say. And we'll see down here that I have the number of passes. I'll get in here and edit the passes, and I'll set, and this is, again, only if I need a real fine, real nice bottom surface finish. I'll set my last pass thickness to just a tiny fraction, like maybe 0.02 of an inch, and click apply. And you'll see here what it does is it makes that last pass really tiny. So the first pass is going to go in 0.04. Then the second pass is going to come down to 105. Then that last pass will be 125. So it's just taking off a real thin skin. And that really helps as far as that final surface is concerned. It can eliminate a lot of tooling marks. It won't eliminate all of them, but it'll eliminate a lot of them, because when it's removing that little material, there's not a lot of bit deflection. So it gets a lot more consistent surface. If I don't care about the bottom finish, if, for instance, I'm going to be coming in and applying a texture, or if I'm going to be pouring epoxy or something like that, I won't even do that. I'll just remove it, you know, number of passes set to whatever it should be, and then go from there. So it really depends on what you're doing and how you're doing it. Step over doesn't really enter into it as far as speed is concerned. If you want speed, your better bet would be to use a larger bit to hog out the majority of the material, and then use a smaller bit to get that final radius. So, like I say, the step over doesn't really enter into the speed. I mean, now you could go even larger than this, go with a 1/2 inch end mill, or even something like a 3/4 inch straight mortising bit, so long as you ramp in your plunge moves, because most of the larger straight mortising bits do not have a cutter all the way across the bottom, so they can't plunge straight down. So generally speaking, you know, it, it's one of those cases of it depends. There is no one size fits all answer. So, but if you, like, for instance, if I bring up my 1/4 inch end mill here on edit, you'll see here that my step over is set at 40% of the bit's diameter, and that's for a clearance pass. If I'm going to be doing finer work, I'll come in and I'll change that. So, all right. I hope that answers that. It's one of those cases of it depends. So, let's see here. Brooks Martin says, after repairing a backlash issue with the CNC, wow. Yeah, major pain. I created a dish with raised letters and bitmap overlay to test the backlash. It turned out well, but a week later the plaque cupped. Any suggestions? Uh, Not really. That is a problem with just about any deep carve. And it doesn't really have to be all that deep. Um, Basically, what it is you have a flat piece of material, nice and flat, and then you remove a bunch of material. Well, natural woods, and what I mean by that is solid stock. I don't mean like engineered woods like plywood or MDF or something like that. But solid stock, there are stresses in the material. And that depends on a lot of factors. Was it quarter sawn, rift sawn, flat sawn? How was the material sawn, and where did it come from on the trunk of the tree? Branches have a completely different set of issues. But if you're talking about, trunk wood, which is what most hardwoods are, um, nobody can really tell what those stresses are. And when you mill away material, you are changing the position of those stresses. So this is really a factor on flat sawn, where you have annular rings making I don't have any solid stock in here. Everything I've got right now. Oh, wait a minute. I have a piece of 2x4 right here. Ah, yes, and that's just fine. When you have annular rings that make this pattern like so, and you remove a bunch of material up here off of the surface, the tendency is going to be for that material to cup up like you're talking about. That is common. That happens all the time. It's less so on quarter sawn or rift sawn material, but you start getting more and more expensive. As for what you can do to prevent that, you're not going to like it. But one of the main things people do to prevent that is they rip the material into thinner strips, glue it up, and alternate your uh, growth ring patterns. You know, and that helps eliminate a lot of that, but it's never going to go away 100%. Now, some woods handle that better than others, but when you're using large, big planks of material, wide planks of material, it's going to happen. Um, and there's really not a whole heck of a lot you can do well, you can reinforce it from the back, mount it on a substrate if you can do that. That's not an option most of the time, but that's a result of carving away a lot of material. And that's one of the reasons why I don't do a lot of projects that require me to machine away a lot of material and leave raised letters, because that's a big issue. You're carving away a lot of material, and the tendency is to release those stresses, and they can cup, they can twist, they can bow, not so much bow as twist. So you know, now Todd over at Todd HC&C says, what is the moisture content? Also, that's another very valid concern. Um, the it depends on where you're located. If you live in a really humid environment, you're gonna reach an equilibrium where the material is gonna lose as much moisture as it's ever gonna lose. Then you bring that material into an area where it's drier, it's gonna dry out more, and things are gonna move. And that's going to change seasonally, and that's just the nature of wood. I mean, it sounds kind of flip to say it, but that's one reason why cabinet makers don't use solid stock to glue up panels to make cabinets. That's why they use plywood, because it's more stable than a solid wood is. I mean, you only have to look at a you only have to look at a table with a glued up top and breadboard edges to see that. I mean, in the summertime when things dry out, that top will shrink a little bit. And if the person who made it slotted those breadboard edges like they should, the you'll see that breadboard edge is wider than the tabletop. And then if you look at it during the winter when there's more moisture in the air and things swell up, you'll see that it's all the same width again. Wood moves, and there's nothing that you or I can do that's going to change that. Now Russell Faraday has a good point here. A cupped plaque looks okay if the edges are against the wall, and that's where flipping it over like so can help as far as cupping is concerned. Because if it's going to cup in a direction that's going to sit flush up against the wall. So, you know. Let's see. He says, thank you. Sprayed it with water and waited the edges, let it dry for 2 weeks. We'll see what happens. Yeah, that's about, I mean, there are various schools of thought out there. I've heard some people say to come in, a little in from the edge a little bit and make some cuts and kind of clamp something to the back of it to stabilize it, flatten it out and stabilize it. You're just making some relief cuts to give the wood somewhere to go when you kind of flatten it out. I've seen people go to extremes and, route out channels and put in metal bracing and what have you, just depending upon what it is. But that's why most of my projects tend to be V-carved, because it removes a lot less material than leaving letters standing proud or text standing proud. But I hesitate to say it will be a fight we'll never win, because you can get a victory here and there. But remember, the weather is always going to change. So fluctuations in humidity may change that as well, you know. Let's see. Uh, Jeff over at J&J Love Dance said he's had some success with laying the material on narrow pieces of wood to allow air to circulate around both sides. When I lay it flat on a counter, it will cut most every time. Yeah, there is truth. There is truth there. So, and then Todd says the only other thing is to seal it right away after carving. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Well, here may be part of your issue. Home Depot wood, Virginia is humid. Yeah. Generally speaking, the wood that you purchase at a big box store, not all of it. If you're going over to where they sell the hardwoods and you're looking at things like the select pine, that is dried to a lower moisture content. Now, without a moisture meter, we have no way of knowing what that is. But if you're using construction grade, like a 2x6 or something like that, most of them are green, not all. If you look at the kiln dried stuff, kiln dried construction grade lumber is only dried down to about 19% moisture content. That's not good enough for furniture. That's just enough to say it's been kiln dried. Um, let's see. Yeah, Todd says Home Cheapo is only about 12% at best. Yes. Now, depending upon your climate, depending upon where you are, like if I go to my hardwood supplier right now and I buy a piece of maple or cherry or whatever, it's going to be somewhere between 8 and 10%. I prefer to something in the 6 to 8% range, but we live in a little bit more humid climate. So, what can you say? Okay, oak didn't measure the moisture content. Yeah, pinless moisture meters, they're not cheap, but they are handy. And they're usually accurate within a percent or two. And that's going to help you figure out. I mean, if you test one board and it's reading 8%, and you test another board and it's reading 12%, I mean, I'm going to get closer with the 8%, whether that's off by a degree or two or even three, than if I just guess. So moisture meter is a good thing to have, especially when working with solid stock that you are not confident with. My first suggestion would be to find a hardwood supplier in your area and check them out. All I do is I go and do a Google search and I put hardwoods and then my zip code or postal code. You do have to wade through some hardwood flooring contractors and suppliers, but you will, generally speaking, find a hardwood supplier somewhere in your area. Barring that, talk to a local cabinet or furniture shop and see if they will let you order through them and piggyback it off their next order. I've had luck doing that too, especially when it comes to sheets of plywood. Now I've found a good supplier of hardwood plywood that I can trust. I no longer have to do that. But before I found that hardwood supplier, I would go to, there's one cabinet shop here that would let me order supplies through them. Russell Faraday, people think I'm pedantic because I take a moisture meter when buying wood. Not pedantic at all. Not pedantic at all. And the folks who think you're being pedantic, they need schooling. Okay, Brooks says he has a pinned meter. Okay. Yeah, if you don't mind the pinned meter, that's fine. Some hardwood suppliers don't like those because every board you reject now has those holes in it. So, what can I say? Yeah, and Todd HC&C, best to let it set for a week or so in a house, just like hardwood flooring, to acclimate. Yes, and that is true. I bring material in here and let it sit for quite a while all the time. And in fact, if you can't see it, the camera angle isn't right. Right underneath the front of the CNC frame is a stack of 2x4s for an assembly table I'm going to be building. See right there, that is the MDF that's going to make up my spoil board. And the cutoff, the drop from this piece of MDO is going to be the top. So, Il Peleg says, taking a look at Amazon, I see there are moisture meters with 2 pins or others that are pinless. Is pinless better? It's that's like asking, is a blue car better than a red car? Um, a lot of people swear by their pin type moisture meters because you're getting the probes down into the wood where it can read the moisture content. You're also leaving holes there that you're either going to have to work around or deal with later on. And other people like the pinless that basically measure the relative density of the wood. And it's kind of 6 of one and half a dozen of the other. I tend to prefer a pinless, but that's just me. Now, am I getting as accurate a reading with a pinless as I would with a pin type? I don't know. Like I say, they usually agree within 1%, um, uh, maybe 2. So if you're looking at getting in the ballpark and figuring out, okay, this is 12% or less, then, or 10% or less, then a pinless is just fine. But if you need to be spot on accurate, then a pin type is going to be more spot on accurate. But again, depending upon where you live and the relative humidity in your area, you may never get 6 or 8%. You may get down to only 14. That's just your environment. And as Todd mentions, the environment in your shop is going to be different from the environment in your house. So, you know, um, there are a lot of factors involved in this. So, and that's also one reason why so many makers of so many different products have gone with engineered woods like plywoods or particle boards or MDFs, is just to eliminate that problem. So, because once it's left your shop, you've lost control. And it may be perfect in your shop for a month, but the minute it's installed in somebody else's house, it could go in any direction. Ask me how I know this. So, let's see here. Excuse me. Real quick question because it's a real quick answer. Peter Van Vliet wants to know, have you ever used a diamond drag bit? No. I have one. I've not used it yet. Watch this space. I will be. Let's see here. Jeff Woody One says, watched a video on adding bitmap textures. Need to add a number of Corian colors, 20 plus. Can I create a Corian folder in bitmap textures folder and add photos to that? Yes. And in fact, lucky you, I know a fella. Where'd I put my pad? There's my pad. I know a fella who made a video on doing that, making custom backgrounds for the 3D view and creating folders for new textures for your 3D view. And I'll put a link to that down in the description of this video as soon as we're done. And I just wrote myself a little note to do so. Yes, you can do exactly that, Jeff. Sorry for smacking the mic there. Let's see here. Go back this way. Brooks, don't ever apologize for that. It's not an issue. That's the whole reason for doing this, is to answer the questions. And if it takes 15 minutes to answer, if it takes a half hour to answer, so be it. So don't worry about it. Let's see here. Back up to Jeff JMJ Love Dance. Just getting into 3D carving with VCarve Pro. Okay. Any advice on where to go for clean, reliable STL files, either free or low cost, looking for a tiger head? I'm gonna kind of defer on that simply because I've never bought a STL file. Take that back. I bought one through Design and Make. That's my go-to. I go to Design and Make and see what they have. And a little pointer here, if you go to Design and Make and go to download one of their files, you'll want the V3M file format. That's the native format for Vectric, and you can load that right into your clip art, and it'll be a part of that whichever folder you decide to put it in. I put them in my clip art folder. But I avoid STL files when I'm getting files from Design and Make. Other than that, free or otherwise, I don't have any recommendations, just simply because I don't do a lot of 3D carving. And if I need a 3D shape for something, I try to make my own. On that note, I would highly, highly, highly recommend you jump over to Michael Mazalik's YouTube channel and binge watch everything he's got several times. And the possibility is there that you could create your own, which is always better. But, and I will put a link to his YouTube channel down in the description as soon as we're done here. That's my first inclination, is Design and Make, Michael Mazalik. If I can't do it myself, if it's something that is really way above my head, I go file by file and just look for, do a Google search, tiger head 3D model or tiger head STL file, and then just look at what's available. I mean, because there are a multitude of people out there creating files. If you can't find a file that you want, then it's time to start talking to a 3D artist like Michael Mazalik again, or any number of other folks out there who will make you a custom model. Be prepared, though. There may be some sticker shock, but you know, you get what you pay for more often than not. So, Rick French, have you ever spent more than an hour looking for something that you know is right there? Ask me about the time I looked for these glasses for a good solid 10 minutes before figuring out that I was wearing them. So, yes, only on days that end with Y. Uh, David Tronsko wants to know, would you document your spoil board build so we who have the same machine can replicate it? Well, I don't know that you'll want to replicate it, but yes, I will be documenting it. Are you kidding me? I've got videos for weeks coming out on this thing as soon as I can get back to actually working on it. I will be doing I will be doing a well, I'm kind of combine it because I'm doing four things at once. You'll notice I'm kind of sort of starting on my dust collection back there. I've got the dust shoe mounted, the brushes off of it. I've got my vertical work holding table framework on. I'm doing the table, and then I'll be doing the spoil board. I'm going to kind of set it up in zones. In that, I'm going to be using T track. Good grief, running in this direction from front to rear on the spoil board. And I'm going to have some sections of T track down here on the vertical surface and some sections without. And that is mainly going to be to mount fixtures. I'm going to be doing a lot of fixturing and a lot of jig making. Then we're going to get into work offsets and things of that nature. So that I'll be able to mount a fixture in one place, fasten it down, then mount material, and have that work offset already set up to where I can home the machine, set that work offset, and the machine will automatically go to the 0 point for that fixture, clamp down a piece of material, and go. Just start cutting. So that's going to be an evolutionary thing as well. Step one is getting this done. And like I say, right now it's pulled to the front so that I can get all of the mounting holes cut. Then I can push it back where it belongs and then bolt it down. Then we'll start building up the spoil board. So, but yes, you can look forward to some videos on that, believe me. Let's see. Peter Van Vliet says, have you used MDO for outdoor signs? I have not used it for outdoor signage, but that's one of the places where it really shines is for outdoor signage. If you seal the edges, and you have to seal those edges. MDO board is used for a lot of signage around here. And in fact, in a former life, I sold real estate. The company I sold real estate through, if you made signage with their logo on it, it had to be made of MDO board. For those that don't know what MDO is a plywood that has a paper layer, resin impregnated paper layer bonded to the top and bottom. That's what this table is. It's made out of MDO board. I don't have I do have a small scrap of it right here. Relatively small. But you can see it's just a standard plywood, but it has that paper bonded on both sides. I buy the MDO with it with the paper on both sides. You can get it with paper just on one side, but I prefer both. And it holds up very, very well if it's sealed. If it's a painted sign, I would highly recommend a good exterior grade primer and then exterior grade paint. And this is where I cheat. I use house paint for anything that's going to be outside. I figured that's what it was designed for. So, exterior house paint. Yeah, Todd HCNC is right. It holds up very well if it's sealed. This is again MDO board, and because of my climate, we get a lot of fog here, 100% humidity, and wood rots. So once I get everything trimmed up and get all the holes cut in it and everything, it's going to be sealed with sanding sealer and polyurethane on all the exposed wood. So I have to, otherwise it's going to rot. So let's see here. I'm looking to see if there were any other questions that I missed while I was doing something else. Let's see, we're talking about moisture meters up there. Let's bring these down here. Todd says, I think that's what it was designed for, is sign making. I believe you're right. I'm not 100% certain on that, but I think you are right. I've also found that it makes a pretty decent work surface. And the drop off that I've cut off of this sheet of MDO, that's going to make my work table. It's going to be the top surface of the work table. So because it is nice and flat and very, very nice to work with. Sargon Tavor, the best friend this channel has ever had. Thank you very much for the super chat. And he said for the mini split fund. Well, thank you. I greatly appreciate it, more than you'll ever know. This little portable AC unit, I did some work on it and got it to where it's working really well. So well, in fact, that the little condensation tray down in the bottom of it was filling up. Channel members will know last Monday during the members only live stream, I emptied that condensation tray twice during the live stream. And I eventually, what I ended up doing was running a hose straight out the back of it. So now it just drains straight outside. So I don't have to empty it at all. But it took a little bit of work and a little bit of playing around to get that done. But yeah, the struggle is real and the fight continues. Thank you very, very much, Sargon. And it will go towards a mini split. I'm hoping next year to have a mini split. So we'll see what happens. John wants to know any experience in making knife handles or scales on a CNC. No, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. That's something that I've had in the back burner up here for quite a while. So watch this space. So, Darwin Vaden Bosch says, could you describe the difference between MDF and MDO? Yes, the difference is night and day. MDF is medium density fiberboard. That is basically ground wood pulp, fine, real fine, and then mixed with resins that are heat activated, and it's loaded into a big press that physically presses the sheets. And I don't have a piece small enough here to hold up to show you the difference. So, well, yes, I do. Take that back. Let me go over here. Ugh. And dig this stuff out again. Ah, sit, stay. Good boy, Ubu. That is MDF. It is a fiberboard, medium density fiberboard. And it has its uses. I mean, I I would highly, highly encourage you not to use it in an exterior application. Just simply because if it gets even the least little bit wet, it will swell up and those glues will start failing and it'll just crumble and melt. Um, and you can paint and paint and paint and paint and paint, but if it gets the least little bit of a puncture in it and water gets in there, it's gone. And that's all there is to it. MDO is plywood. The MDO stands for medium density overlay. And that again is that resin impregnated paper that's bonded to the surface. But it is, as you can see, a plywood. So, two completely different animals. The MDO is made with waterproof glues that I hesitate to say waterproof. They say waterproof glues, but nothing is truly waterproof, especially when there's a wood product involved, because it will suffer delamination the same as any other kind of plywood if it's not sealed. So, Ray Russell says it explodes. Yeah, kinda. Yeah, kinda. Okay. Speaking of Ray Russell, he says in October I have a Avid 4896 coming. Congratulations. I currently use VCarve Pro. What does Aspire do for me? If you are getting into 3D modeling, Aspire does almost everything for you. If you are not getting into making your own 3D models, Aspire will do very little for you. It's mainly the 3D modeling that and shape creation that is the advantage where Aspire shines. Let me go back over here to Aspire since we're on the subject and jump out of the toolpath tab. Over here in the drawing tab, everything is the same. There is no real difference. You get over here onto the modeling tab, and where you have one line of tools up here, you can see I have 4. This is all on shape creation. I can turn and spin shapes. I can extrude. I can do 2 rail sweeps. I can just create a shape. Let's take a look at this rectangle here. Select it. And let's do a pyramid shape here. What the heck? And limit to a height of, let's say, 1/4 of an inch. Well, let's say 1/8 of an inch. 125. I'm not going to do any fade or tilt or anything. And we'll go with add. We'll click apply. Close. And now if I go over to my 3D view, I've just created that shape. Just that quickly. If you're not interested in doing anything like this, Aspire won't do anything for you. If you have situations where you want to create moldings, extrude moldings, you can use a molding tool path in VCarve Pro. Aspire has a few more tools to make that a little bit more interesting, however. So it all comes down to shape creation, shape editing, and 3D modeling. VCarve, you are very, very limited. Having said that, I used VCarve for 5 years before I moved to Aspire, and I'm glad I made the move. I'm glad I made that move. So, hope that helps. Again, if you're not really interested in the artistic side and don't want to get into 3D carving, then Aspire really wouldn't benefit you much at all. So, let's see. Have I kept up? I think I have kept up. Holy cow. I have kept up. All right. Okay, so what are we looking at? Yeah, we're looking at about 55 minutes. So unless anybody has any further questions, um, we'll go ahead and we'll start wrapping this up. I hope to have at least the table and dust collection portion of the spoil board video up next week. Fingers crossed, all things being equal. Here's hoping, barring further accidents. Um, then it won't be specifically on the spoil board because I do want to spend a little bit of time and doing the tool paths and make that a screen capture tutorial. Uh, I still also haven't decided yet on how I'm going to fasten down the spoil board while the glue is curing. We'll see what happens. And I'm waiting on T-Track. So there is that. Peter Van Vliet, thank you. You rock, sir. I do appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for your super chats. You guys mean more than you will ever know. Believe me. Let's see here. One last real quick. I watched YouTube videos on double texting. I think you mean stack text, double texting. Would Aspire make it easier? No, the process is identical. The only difference it would make was if you were trying to say add a lot of draft to the text, or you were trying to stylize a few things with your text on text. It'll make shape creation easier. Like, for instance, if you wanted to make the bottom text, if you wanted to make it more rounded on top, like it was a dome shape or something on each character, on each letter, except for a flat spot where the top text was going to go, you can do that in Aspire. It'd be very difficult, if not impossible, to do in VCarve. And as I keep saying, I just kind of telegraphed there. We call this foreshadowing. I've got more ideas running around the squirrel cage here than a tail feather on a turkey farm. So that's one of those things that I am kind of looking into and may get into later on, is how to do a little bit of variation in the bottom text or the top text and leave at flat recess where that top text belongs. It's really going to be something if it works out. I knew they would come. I saw Bob Hildenbridle's comment earlier. Yes, I'm doing the bib overall thing. They really help out. I'm not walking around pulling my drawers up, and I've got more pockets to carry stuff in. Man, it's great. I love them. And yeah, I told my wife that got to get bib overalls. That means I have to do the official old man thing and stop shaving, grow out the white beard, and stop getting haircuts. But as we all can see, that didn't actually pan out, did it? Yeah. No Uncle Jesse here. Okay. Thanks, y'all. And channel members, tomorrow night, 5:30 Pacific, 8:30 Eastern. You'll find a link to the members only live stream on the community tab. Go to my main channel page, hit the community link, go over to the community tab, and you'll find the links there. And we'll see you tomorrow at 5:30. I'm not going to tell you what I got in store for you tomorrow because I don't really know. But somebody sent me, John Thompson, sent me some cool pictures, and I'm going to be quizzing him a little bit. So I shouldn't have said anything because now he's not going to show up. But John, I ask questions. Hopefully you has answers. We'll figure that out tomorrow. For everybody else, thank you, thank you, thank you for the super chats. Thank you for watching the videos, sharing the videos, liking and commenting on the videos. Thank you for being here today. You all rule. And until next time, go do something cool. Go make some chips. Go have some fun. Or if you've already been doing that all weekend long, sit down and relax. You've earned it. Thanks very much, y'all. Have a good week. See you next week.